NPR News in Washington, I'm Paul Brown. Federal authorities say they've arrested a man in an alleged terrorist bombing attempt. NPR's Dina Temple-Raston.
His name is Qazi Mohammed Nafis, and he's a 21-year-old Bangladeshi citizen who came to the U.S. under a student visa back in January of this year, and he's been living in Queens, New York.
Officials say Nafis tried to detonate a bomb outside the Federal Reserve Building in New York City near the 9/11 attack site, not knowing the bomb was a fake and that he'd been working with undercover agents. President Obama and his Republican challenger Mitt Romney will be in the same room tonight for the second time this week. They're speaking to a Catholic charities group in a more humorous vein than on the campaign trail. But NPR's Ari Shapiro reports that on the trail, Romney is on the attack minute after minute.
The Al Smith Dinner is an annual white tie charity fundraiser. President Obama and Mitt Romney will both attend, taking a break from the harsh attacks for some more lighthearted ribbing. Last night in Leesburg, Virginia, Romney was much more pointed, accusing President Obama of failing to articulate a clear vision.
I think it's interesting, with two presidential debates gone, the president still hasn't found an agenda for his second term. We have an agenda for our term, and our agenda is going to get this country working again.
Romney also went point by point through this week's presidential debate, relitigating his favorite moments and providing some new comeback lines that were not at his fingertips when he was facing the president. Ari Shapiro, NPR News, Leesburg, Virginia.
The president discounts Romney's claims, and at campaign stops he claims his policies have worked. He also says Romney's ideas are proven failures.
It's the same philosophy that's been squeezing middle-class families for more than a decade. It's the same philosophy that we saw in the previous administration, and I have seen too much pain and too much struggle to let this country go down that same road again.
That's Mr. Obama in Cedar Rapids, Iowa yesterday. He campaigns in New Hampshire today. Greek riot police are firing tear gas on workers who've walked off the job today in the second anti-austerity protest in 3 weeks. From Athens, Joanna Kakissis reports the demonstrations are aimed at Eurozone leaders meeting in Brussels.
Demonstrators say they want EU leaders to see that austerity is bankrupting Greeks, not helping the country recover from a 5-year recession so it can pay back billions in bailout loans. Those loans come from the EU, the European Central Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, which Greeks call the Troika. The government is now in testy negotiations with the Troika, who want the country to enact labor reforms as well as cutting wage, pension, and public sector jobs. Most of the hundreds of anti-austerity protests in the last 3 years have turned violent. For NPR News, I'm Joanna Kakissis in Athens.
Some 80 years after its founding, Newsweek magazine says it will cease print publication and go all digital early next year. This is NPR. Confidential files kept by the Boy Scouts of America on men suspected of child sex abuse are set to be released later today after a 2-year court battle. Tom Kosnoff is an attorney for 2 claimed Boy Scout abuse victims. He says there's no justification for the Scouts' silence.
The Boy Scouts sat on this information for 100 years. And so while they may say, well, we as a society didn't understand as much about pedophiles and how they operate, that may be true. But the Boy Scouts certainly knew.
The Boy Scouts have maintained they did all they could to prevent abuse, but some files already released show failure to report known incidents to law enforcement. More than 14 million Americans are signed up to participate in a national earthquake drill this morning called the Great Shakeout. The event originated 4 years ago in Southern California. NPR's Craig Windham reports the goal is to teach people the best way to protect themselves in an earthquake.
At 10:18 this morning, local time, participants will practice a survival technique called drop, cover, and hold on. Larry Collins is with the Los Angeles County Fire Department's Urban Search and Rescue Team.
What we want you to do is protect yourself by getting under something sturdy.
That means dropping down and getting under a table or desk.
Cover your head and your vital organs, and you're going to hang on to the furniture, the item that you're under.
By doing that, Collins says,
you're protecting yourself from the flying debris that's going to be dropping all over the place.
Research shows that's much safer than running outside or crouching in a doorway. School children in California have been coached on the technique.
What are those 3 words we want to remember during an earthquake?
Drop, cover, hold on.
Craig Windham, NPR News.
I'm Paul Brown, and this is NPR News from Washington.